You've seen it, right? From the absolute gut punch of Parasite winning Best Picture to the entire world getting hooked on Squid Game, Korean stories haven't just entered the chat, they're running the whole conversation. But what if I told you this is no accident, that it's not just a lucky streak? Turns out there's a powerful, kind of unique formula at work here, a secret recipe that has turned K-cinema into the global powerhouse it is today. So let's get into it and see what's really going on behind the curtain.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with just how massive this K-content explosion really is. Then we'll peel back the layers and look at something called the director's kingdom. We'll zoom in on a true master of genres, figure out how these movies jumped across borders, and finally, we'll try to crack the code on why these stories just connect with all of us, no matter where we live. Okay, first things first, let's get the scale right. The recent wave of Korean content isn't just a trend. No, it's more like a full-on cultural tsunami that's completely redrawing the map of global entertainment. Which, of course, brings us to the big question we're tackling. How? How did this happen? How did the stories from one country become the entire planet's go-to for entertainment that's thrilling, original, and just so deeply human? For so many people, the moment it really clicked was Squid Game. I mean, when it hit #1 on Netflix everywhere in 2021, it wasn't just another hit show. It was a declaration. It proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that a story in Korean with Korean actors and very specific cultural details could be the most popular thing on earth. This wasn't the start of the wave, but it was the moment you just couldn't ignore it anymore. So to really understand the how, we have to pop the hood and look at the engine itself, the structure of the Korean film industry. And you'll see it's built very differently from Hollywood. The secret? It all comes down to one person, the director. And that brings us to this super important word, auteur. It's a French word, and it literally just means author. In the film world, it describes a director who has so much creative control, so much influence, that the movie is basically seen as their personal vision. They are the author. And here's the thing, in Korea, the director as an auteur isn't a rare thing. It's the foundation of the whole system. And this just lays it out so clearly. You know, in Hollywood, it's often the producers, the studio heads, who have the final say. It's a system of checks and balances, which can sometimes water down a bold idea. But in Korea, the director is king. They have the ultimate authority. And that environment is what allows for these incredibly unique, powerful, and sometimes risky films to get made. Now, it's not a flawless system, of course, but it's absolutely the key to the singular visions we end up seeing. And all this creative freedom is powered by something absolutely mind-blowing, the domestic audience. To really grasp their influence, you just need to know this one magic number for the Korean box office: 10 million. Just think about that for a second. Hitting 10 million viewers means 1 out of every 5 people in the entire country went to a movie theater to see your film. That's not just a hit, it's a national phenomenon. And because you have this incredibly passionate, engaged audience at home, you have a market that's willing to show up for weird, ambitious, and unconventional movies. That gives directors the cover they need to take huge creative swings. So what does this director-first system actually look like in practice? Well, let's take a look at a perfect example. Director Kim Jee-woon, who is just a total chameleon, a true master of genres. I mean, just look at this incredible range. In just a few years, Kim Jee-woon delivered the creepy, psychological horror of A Tale of Two Sisters, the super slick, stylish neo-noir A Bittersweet Life, the massive action of The Good, the Bad, the Weird, and the truly brutal slasher I Saw the Devil. Every single one is a masterclass in its genre. You just don't see this kind of genre hopping in Hollywood. It's a direct result of a system that empowers its visionaries. And this quote is just perfect. He calls his movie a kimchi western. He took the blueprint of the American Western, plopped it down in 1930s Manchuria, and injected it with this totally unique Korean energy and style. And that right there is the K-cinema playbook in a nutshell. Master global genre, then break all the rules and make it your own. Okay, so we have this powerhouse, director-driven film industry with this super passionate audience at home. But how did these films actually get out into the world? How did they find a global audience? Well, it really happened along 2 main paths. The first path was through international team-ups. You know, you have a movie like Minari, a deeply Korean immigrant story, but it's produced by an American company and ends up winning Oscars. Or look at Broker, a Korean film through and through with huge Korean stars, but it's directed by the legendary Japanese director Hirokazu Koreeda.
These kinds of projects started to blur the lines and put Korean talent on the world map. But that second path? That was the one that changed everything. This is how K-content made the leap from niche film festivals right into millions of living rooms around the globe, streaming platforms. This quote just says it all. The director of Squid Game had the script finished for a decade, but everyone thought it was too bizarre, too violent, too risky for the traditional system. It was only when Netflix came along, hungry for exactly that kind of bold original story, that it actually got made. Streaming became the home for the ideas that were maybe a little too wild even for Korea's risk-taking industry. So we have the how. We see the machinery. But that leaves the biggest and maybe the most important question of all. Why? Why do these very specific Korean stories hit so hard with people from totally different backgrounds all over the world? And the answer is in this idea of dramatic metonymy. Now that sounds academic and fancy, but the concept is actually super simple. It means these stories use a small, specific situation, like a poor family conning their way into a rich family's house in Parasite, to talk about a much bigger universal feeling. In this case, it's the worldwide anxiety about class, about the fear of being left behind. That growing gap between the haves and the have-nots, that's not just a Korean problem, it's a global one. These films tap into a feeling that everyone, everywhere can understand deep down. So there you have it. This is the formula, all on one slide. It all starts with creative freedom for the directors. They use that freedom to master and reinvent genres, and that's all backed by a huge, engaged home audience that allows them to tell these daring stories. Stories that explore universal anxieties about class, money, and family that, it turns out, everyone connects with. That's the secret sauce. And that leaves us right here, in the present, with a really big question for the future. This partnership with global streaming giants is what launched K-content into the stratosphere. But as they make more and more content together, will that partnership eventually change the very thing that made it so special? Will the demands of a global audience start to smooth out those sharp, unique, and sometimes uncomfortable edges that made us fall in love with K-cinema in the first place? That's the next chapter, and it's being written right now.